Hey there, everybody. It's Zach at Feel Free to Argue. And was just watching this morning what I think, honestly, is the most important TV show that's around, and that's Democracy Now! Of course, you know, she had a news report full of the usual interesting things. Couldn't believe it. Apparently they found this bear with an Obama-Biden sign attached to it that had been brutally killed. So take that, bears. If you support Obama-Biden, you're going to be killed. I swear to God, I just can't believe what people come up with. But actually the one that I thought was most interesting, there was actually a wide variety of interesting segments. I thought today's program was unusually good. I mean, I thought the headlines were relevant. I mean, I really liked the segments they did about campaign finance and about Guantanamo Bay, where I think it's interesting that we dismissed charges against 6 of the people that we were holding in Guantanamo Bay, but we're not going to let them go. We're just going to recharge them with something else. Well, you know, those of you who saw my video on Guantanamo Bay Justice know that the whole point at this point is that we can't let them go because they've been here so long. You know, they got to be guilty of something or it's going to look kind of bad. But the guy that really interested me on Democracy Now! Was a guy named Mark Crispin Miller, who was talking about vote suppression and also talking a bit about the alleged crime of voter fraud and the fact that it doesn't really exist. Like, for example, you know, one of the things I thought was really interesting is, you know, he just kind of mentioned out of hand that the 2004 election was stolen. And Amy Goodman just like immediately stops and says, hey, how do you know that? He said, well, I know it because this guy named Richard Hayes Phillips did an audit of 18 counties, and which is a small fraction of the counties in Ohio, and found 200,000 ballots that had been modified or screwed with in some way that were clearly Kerry ballots and then ended up either being not counted or being Bush-Cheney ballots. And talking about things as obvious as people being given ballots that were pre-marked for Bush-Cheney and them, you know, then marking Kerry, and then of course, well, you can't vote for 2 people, so those ballots got thrown away. And there were like thousands of those ballots that were pre-marked that were delivered that way. And there were ones, and I can't believe that they get away with stuff as obvious as this, where they put like a little sticker over where the box had been marked for Kerry, and then like somebody went over and blacked in the Bush-Cheney side. I mean, honestly, you know, they're worried about Acorn when Republicans are pulling this shit? Oh my God. So, and he said, even scarier was that after this guy did this research into the 18 counties and was like looking to expand it to the rest of Ohio, 55 Ohio counties destroyed all or some of their ballots in defiance of a court order saying that they were not to do it. So they were willing to risk, you know, whatever consequence. I mean, clearly this was just like a calculation on their part. It's like, okay, well, there's this court order saying that we can't, you know, get rid of these ballots, but honestly, what's going to happen to us if they do see the ballots is going to be so much worse that you will put up with whatever they're going to do to us for destroying them. You know, that's clearly the kind of calculation that's going on here. I mean, why would you destroy them? Why would you destroy them unless you were covering up for something? You know, there's just no logical reason that you're going to be able to offer to me about why you're going to have to do that. But I think one of the things that he also addressed, and this is something that I also tried to address in the video that I did the other day, is that they're looking for a narrative. Because they need to, like, I mean, he points out that some people are like already kind of playing for the McCain loss and seeing what they can do to possibly cast doubt on Obama's victory. And clearly, the Acorn strategy is part of that. And it's, you know, one of the things that I want people to keep in mind is that oftentimes Acorn is actually the one who is helping the government, rat out the registrations that are false. I mean, they flag these things, but they have to. Once they get the information from one of their people in the field, they have to turn it in. They're not allowed to make that judgment to say, well, I don't think this Mickey Mouse one is valid. They can put a little sticky note on it and put it in a big pile of ones that they give to the government, the election board, that says, we don't think these are actually okay. Our people collect them, we have to turn them in, but we think that these are probably actually, just fake ones. And Acorn frequently does that. But you've got to realize that people will turn around and use even that information against Acorn. I mean, a lot of the ones that have been, the specific examples that have been used by like bloviators on the right recently have actually been things that Acorn turned in and flagged and said, look, this is probably wrong. And then they turn around and make a big deal with it. Nevada was a perfect example. Acorn brought in a whole bunch of these and alerted the Secretary of State in Nevada, said, look, we got this big pile of ones that we think, is actually invalid. And the Secretary of State in Nevada immediately turned around and said, well, I guess I have proof now that you're conspiring to engage in voter fraud. I mean, how do you win this? I mean, clearly the message is, don't even try to register people to vote. And I think that is. I think that is very much the clear message that they're trying to send. Don't try to help poor people to vote. You're only going to cause trouble for yourself. And in terms of this, once again, building up the narrative, that they're pushing this whole idea of voter fraud, because that's part of the whole thing, showing that you need to have these vote suppression techniques because you're actually combating this systemic problem of voter fraud. And this is what Miller had to say about that. And he mentions it a couple of times, but the last time he was very definitive about it. Voter fraud, I want to repeat this, is virtually non-existent. There have been several academic studies of this notion of whether individuals actually stuffed ballot boxes or show up at polling places pretending to be somebody else. There's actually not a single known case of any such type of voter fraud being prosecuted by the Department of Justice. And yet, that notion of voter fraud is used as the pretext for taking steps that do demonstrably result in tens of thousands of people being unable to vote. So, there you go. I mean, this is I know I just did a video about this subject the other day, but I mean, I think it's important to get your head around the fact that this is really occurring, it's widespread, it's systemic, and they're trying to develop a narrative to steal this election away from Obama should he win it. So, I think given this information, we have to regard a lot of states that we might not think of battleground states as being battleground states. Because these vote suppression techniques, we're not going to know how strong they are until Election Day. We're not going to know how many people have been purged off the rolls. We're not going to know how many people have been flagged so that they will be challenged at their voting place and be shunted over into these provisional ballots, which then may or may not be counted. So, that's the information I got today. I think you should really, if you've got the time to devote an hour, I think today's episode of Democracy Now! was quite excellent and well worth your time. But, as with all my stuff, this is Zach Elliott, and you can feel free to argue.